I have this lesson in me that I want to see if I can bring this out in a way that it might help someone. And what that lesson is and what that lesson is about, and this looks like this video is going. And I'm going to stay in the sun, even though someone could suggest that the video isn't as clear. I will get more clearer information for you, because I'm where I'm meant to be when I'm giving it, and I need to sit in the sun right now. So if it distracts you, go into listen mode only. It started from an entirely large amount of things that can go through my mind at any given moment because of the way I receive information, especially if I'm being given information to pass on. And the words were, you can't change the past. You can't change what just happened in the physical dimension by it not happening. So you can't change the past. In the moment that you had whatever just happened to you, you can't change that second that you lost your temper. That's already happened. When you believe in a bigger universe and you start to believe that there's another version of yourself that you could see, and having that conversation differently, that's allowing yourself to know there's another version of this, or I don't make this mistake, or I'm going to use what I just did as understanding of saying I want to respond better next time, because you can't actually change it. And because you can't actually change it, you can only change what you do about it. You can only change, you can change, not only as in you can't change that aspect of it, I guess is the way. You can't change the fact that it already happened. And if you want to talk to me at the level of yes, you can in parallel lifetimes, I will absolutely have that conversation. But this message is for everyone right now. It's not solely for people that would believe in a higher dimension or universe, or there's another version of, this experience, or I'm incarnated and I believe in the Akashic Records and that a soul has more than the existence that's here. I actually have that conversation all the time. And that's the one I want to bring forward more. But sometimes this information is for everyone to know. You can't change the moment that's already happened. But to change the outcome of it means you can recognize that you can change the moment that you're in by the choosing how you handle it now. How you carry it forward is now a choice. How often you think about it is now a choice. Your willingness to forgive yourself for it is now a choice. You get to decide on everything in between, because you get to decide on everything in between because you accept 100% of the equation is you can't change the moment that already happened. You can change how you're going to think about it the next second, though. And the programming that you're used to and what you've done the most often, by the law of quantum physics, has to be the thing that will pop up the quickest and the fastest because you have the highest connection to it. So don't use that moment as your moment to determine if this is something you can do differently. You become conscious by recognizing, I can't change the moment that's already passed. I can't change the behavior that I just had. I can't change what I did. I can't change what I let happen, whatever way the energy is, wherever you're sitting in it. I just walked in and spewed shit all over my wife, my husband, my relatives, my coworker, whatever. I just completely dumped on someone. I just had found out my best friend just did this with someone very dear to me, and it's not a cool thing. After that moment is already taken place, what you have absolute control over when you put it into practice and get out of the standard programmed response that you've now created over lifetimes of reasons, from every single thing down to the second the first person looked at us, we were being imprinted. So understand that the depth of anything going on in your personality, especially 40, 50, 60 years old, that's a lot of experiences for pretty much the type of people I know. It's a lot of experiences. So you can't change that minute, but guess what? You actually can change how you react to it. Boom. Boom. You have power over that story now that you did not have if you give power to it. So, the question it can make you ask next then, if everybody understands that the moment just passed can't be changed, maybe we could also choose to let up on a lot of things, because you can't actually change the fact that somebody just got angry in front of you or did something. If it's put someone in danger, it endangers a child, it endangers a woman, it endangers the behavior that may happen next from a physical standpoint, then a person needs to go into a mode of handling it differently and having an action or reaction accordingly. But otherwise, since we can't change the moment, we could change, say, holy, I just completely dumped my shit all over you, or all over this situation, or took it completely personal. Whether you can say it out loud in that moment or not, be accountable for how, absolutely what comes next. And by most of the habitual stuff that people do, it won't feel good until you realize you take responsibility for having control over the next moment. Because if you can't change the past, spending much time in it is actually not a forward-moving experience or motion. It's in the law of energy. It isn't. It's like you're pulling away from a magnet. But the effort is in actually you're being pulled back from being pulled. You want to be pulled towards the magnet of what it is you want. You don't want to be stuck, to stay stuck in the energy of your in the past. And how this lesson and message came through in another context in the last day was when we're thinking about the past. If you just looked at a line that was basically in the middle, and one side was moved forward into the future and one side moved into the past. If you're in the past, the energy means that you're behind the line from wanting what you want, because the future of something different is on the other side of the line. So it takes a lot of energy to be in resistance. It's so much more beneficial for you to just accept that there was a shithead moment right then and there, whether it was towards you or from you. Either way, we get to choose our reaction. And then get yourself out of being a victim about it as quickly as possible, regardless. If you see yourself as a victim inside of a story, it's a very disempowering place to be. When you see yourself as, and there are what we would define as energy of what the experience of a victim would be on the earth can be very severe right now. We have what we would call victims of violence, and what that really is, it means there's a repetitive amount of violence going towards something in specifics. And in this one, it would be women on the earth, right? But to keep the messages going and keeping them both in mind, to be a victim to somebody else's opinion, to being a victim because somebody hurt your feelings, to be a victim because you don't have any money in your bank account, to be a victim because everything that's going wrong in your life has to do with a particular situation, genre, sex, race, men. If you allow yourself to fold to the story that something bad happened to you, that's the energy of the victim. It's not the energy of somebody who's empowering themselves to move forward by saying, this just happened because it couldn't be happening if I wasn't participating in it at some level. Now I'm probably going to be talking to people that may be not hearing me anymore because I'm bringing it from a more of a physical standpoint of when you understand the actual energetics, meaning there is an energy vibration that's taking place in the power of the thought. And how I would look at that to understand what I'm saying right now is if it's a very quick little fly through your mind thought, see it as a grain of sand that just left you, like in the universe. It's a grain of sand. But if you've been thinking that same thought over and over again towards the same particular thing, person, experience, the repetitiveness, as you tell the story, you're still telling your friends 6 months later, you talk about it all the time, that's not a grain of sand anymore. That's a mountain that you've created in a field of energy, because every repetitive thought is like adding in a grain of 2 sands, 3 sands. Next thing you know, there's something of substance there. That's not a passing thought anymore. You're creating it into form. So if you're going to repeat something, it's very, very, very beneficial to teach yourself to repeat things that feel good and work at it. Find humor and shit like that, you know what I mean? It's like become conscious of what it is that is your programming. What actually do you say most often to yourself? And most of us in life right now are actually not saying very nice things about ourselves, maybe about other people, both. Lots of and massive amounts of sadness and grief and depression and low self-esteem and being confused and not knowing what side of the fence to be on, and is the world this messed up, and is there control over anything? There is, and if you want to step up and make a difference in that outer picture becoming better all the way around, it's to step up to some level of accountability in who you are, how you show up, and what the next moment of reaction is going to be for you. Nobody else can control over that moment in that time. Does it join the repetitive story I say all the time, or is it something I'm going to reframe and say something new about? And that can come in, I'm repeating the same story about people I am pissed off at, for example. So do you know what those guys did? And blah, blah, blah. You know, tell it again. You're going to your girlfriend. Other people mention it too while you're out. They say, hey, yeah, I heard them guys really pissed you off. Or, hey, yeah, I know, blah, blah, blah. Whatever way the story keeps coming out repetitively, you never leave your house and you repeat over and over again how pissed off or affected you are by somebody that's hurt you. You don't have a grain of sand being built next to you. You have a sandbox being built next to you. And then the sandbox can become a sand hill and a sand mountain. The value of repeating something that doesn't feel good is not going to energetically be able to support you in getting to a better place. You would have to repeat the pattern. I don't want to edit, so if I've said a set of words wrong, please just stick with the message. To take a repetitive pattern and it become something that you want to happen, feel good about, be proud of, enjoy, experience. The repetitiveness of having a better feeling thought has to take place. And the depression and the low sadness and the energy and the grief can feel like I don't have a better feeling thought in me. So learn the lesson of I have control over the way I have my thought next. I can put on a video that repeats this message to me, that keeps getting me to ask the question. So next time what happens is I will notice that you lasted 20 minutes longer before the monkey mind moved in, say, for example, at some point. And say, you know what, I actually did just move my thoughts forward without staying stuck in something. I call those woohoo moments, massive moments. Grab your wins, high five me in the universe over that stuff. That is actually where you start to be, you're getting a message that's repetitive to you, that's now telling you that I do have control over the moment that I'm going to think next, and I get to choose to put something on that reminds me of it until it becomes natural for me. I don't have the answer to tell everyone how to get out of a depressive moment. What I do know is no matter any moment I'm in, I'm awake, I can choose to feed myself something, and I would put on subliminal information. Actually, not necessarily. I'm going to change that if you're new to this. I would put on something that gives you food for thought and fall asleep to it. I would go and pick somebody that has high integrity in their information and even maybe does do some subliminal information, but there's some really amazing people on the earth that do that work in integrity. But so something, or where you hear a particular message, Abraham, Esther Hicks channeling Abraham is one of the most clearest information on the earth. But I think there's even, when you get into the information coming entirely from the field, you'll take it, meaning that you understand there's more going on here. I'm not the sum of the mistake I just made unless I make myself the sum of the mistake I just made. If I get to choose my next moment, I get to choose to be angry or compassionate. I get to choose. That really sucked that that person just did that to me. Tore the wind right out of my sails. But I get to choose a thought that could go something like this. Hurt people. Hurt people. Hurt people. Hurt people. That person would absolutely is in a form of pain themselves to cause hurt to someone else, especially in their shit, so to speak. So if you go, you know what, people, the only reason somebody would do that is because they're hurt, because hurt people hurt people. And then the person, it's the pattern of then the hurt person hurts people. You get to stop that train by having a conscious thought and asking yourself the question. Or giving yourself the option of being forgiven towards yourself or towards them, because hurt people hurt people. So they must be in a bad place for them to do that. Especially if we liked each other and did have a kindness and rapport, and they could have been a friend. But that's just who they are underneath all of it. So how do I want to show up in the world as an accountable person and manage my next moment in some way of being the one that chooses, the power to choose? Am I going to let this really hurt me? Because if I'm really hurt, then I'm probably going to shut down around everybody. I potentially, I could start going off on a lot of different examples, you guys. I feel like I don't want to do that right now, but I have no idea who is the audience for this in some ways, but I have to see it. I have to say it. So when you go back to that place and you start to say, okay, well, I can keep that in my heart, that hurt people, which means that person must be in some sort of pain for them to have been mean to me right now, and that's what I feel like. I felt like that was mean. If you stay stuck in that, you'll be leaning on the side of the fence of the victim. If you stay in accountability of it, it will come to you like, I'm only there because I'm in this creation with them. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. That's when you get into universal laws and laws of energy and stuff like that, because you're only there because you're a vibrational match to the moment. Otherwise, you'd be in a different moment with a different experience. That is law. That is law. That is quantum law. And because I see now through what would actually be like a form of, it's shown to me in numbers and in numerics and in a version of what you would see initially in the matrix in terms of information that's just coming through like numerical information, which is what the true, beyond the being in the physical earth, is what is actually going on. That's what quantum information is, and quantum physics. And if you need to understand that more, it means that when they look, we are numerics. Everything is numerics in the end. Put it that way. And so I've started studying a numeric language in the 90s, and I didn't know the purpose of it until now. I started into the Akashic Records, and I started seeing inside of people's numbers and birth numbers, and using the numbers to go into the records, and then knowing that numbers have a certain resonance. And my birth numbers are Fibonacci numbers, and I've been given information numerically for a very long time, and I listen and pay attention to that. And because I've had Fibonacci numbers in my birth numbers, they've showed up repetitively, and so I have started to have this experience whereby when I was go into the Akashic Records, I'm not really seeing physical experiences anymore, meaning like that person had a relationship with that person and they lost a baby together and now they have grief inside of their story. I don't see the third dimensional stuff that much anymore because I don't really ask questions at that level. So I go in there and I'm now getting the information more numerically. It's shown to me numerically that this is just vibrational misinformation. It's like doing a virus scan or a defrag inside of it as numerical information. And when I have this new experience in the Akashic Records and I allow myself to go have that experience, the amount of energy that gets moved is very different than anything that can happen on the physical level. So I think who this work is for, that come for that peace and say, I want to go into an experience of having the work done in my field, in my records, in my energy field, in the numerics, instead of me having to be conscious and come out and tell you that you had a lifetime where you had grief with that person and you lost a baby together. And so that's why you both feel sad when you're around each other. When you want to know the deeper story, when you have the same repetitive pain showing up in your life, when you have distrust, when you have addiction, when you have repetitive pattern of whatever the repetitive pattern is, it's actually numeric information in the morphogenic field. And that's where I now I think I get my information, and that from a standpoint, I go physically out into the field of the universe. So when I do sessions now, what's happened is I don't think I can work at the third dimension. The best person for me to assist by doing those clearings, those specific clearings, is somebody who comes in because they believe in the story of the numerics, of the Akashic Records, of past lives, there's just some repetitive energy story in there, because if you believe in parallel lifetimes, it's all taking place simultaneously, which can cause a lot of confusion for people that live in a third dimensional thought pattern, meaning think they come here once and that's it. They don't have a concept that they would have another lifetime. They don't think beyond the physical, this one. So in other words, everything that's happening is literal. All the bad things on the earth are literal. There's no higher spiritual story taking place. I'm not part of a bigger purpose. I have never lived in that space since I was a very little girl. I'm sure of it, based on things my mother would say to me. And for example, one of them was, "Where do you come up with this stuff, Diane?" I'm like, well, it's just I just had this natural belief that we couldn't be boxed into this physical thing where we were all Catholics and Protestants at separate schools who judged each other and behaved this way. And I can get into quite a story about the physical display of what I was mostly taught as a young person. I didn't like most of it. And they all lived with most of it, what I was brought in with, the hypocrisy inside of a structure of the religion and the church. So it didn't make me feel good to think about religion, but I loved believing in a form of a God. I loved believing that there had to be something bigger than this taking place, because this couldn't be what's actually, we couldn't all be judging each other like this. We couldn't be judged as a family because our parents did that. My mom would never have to go to the back of the church for not accepting that behavior, which was not conducive to the wellness of a family, because she didn't take it in the eyes of the God that I want to have. My God would never put my mother at the back of the church for making a choice to be in a healthier place for everyone, and in particularly special her children. My God wouldn't put my mother at the back of the church. Humans do that. So I have very strong feelings towards, sometimes when I get mad or upset, I'm struggling with, I'm stuck in the human story. If I'm upset, I'm stuck in the human story. And my video just stopped, so it came back on. Maybe it's going. If not, I just said that if I'm in pain myself, it's stuck again. If I'm in pain myself, I'm very attached to the human outcome. I just don't even know what to do with all this information, but somewhere I'm going to put it out there and teach, and you guys can sort it through. If I start talking in a way that you don't understand me anymore, let me know and I'll explain it differently. And if you say, no, I totally get it, I want you to teach me more because you already believe in all of that stuff, then let me know, because I'll just teach different classes. So if this is all on audio and it's working, I may just put it in the mix as something that people can hear, because I struggle with teaching anything when you're not perfect. You have this ridiculous actual expectation of yourself to teach something that you could actually be good at because of some thing where you define yourself by your mistakes. well, I put up with a lot of shit, so who am I to teach people not to, or something? Or I've had a lot of things happen to me, say, from a health standpoint, so you can have compassion for people that have health issues, where somebody who doesn't have a health issue might never be able to relate and might find a place to judge it in the sense, oh, suck it up, buttercup, get over yourself. That's actually not a working solution for everybody. If you can back it up by getting yourself to feel stronger in a moment because of it. But if the outcomes that you want around you, if you want them to feel better, you've got to start changing the things that go through your mind, that they're thoughts that make you feel better. And if watching the news never makes you feel better, well, be accountable and stop watching the news. If you want to give yourself excuses, well, you can't, because you have to stay up with an extremely small percentage of truth that's being provided to you. If you watch mainstream media, it doesn't even fit in my brain how anyone would anymore, but I'm told people do. I have to work on not judging that, because I don't have a clue how you could feel good in there listening to that stuff all day. There's a massive amount of amazing things happening on the earth. Massive amount of it. People coming together for masses of amounts of reasons, and the tolerance of putting up with corruption and bullshit is finally getting enough people mad. But they're still framing it, if you're still going to make it specifically about one political party, you're living in a box that's not near big enough. This corruption is been going on for a long time because we allowed ourselves to be dumbed down completely through programming. And the programming comes in the repetitive thing that they've been putting in front of us when they put TVs and airwave information in front of us. There's too much stuff for most people to think about. I don't want to get into that topic off here. I do want to tell you, though, that if you watch mainstream media, please do so without complaining about your outcomes in the life that's going on in front of you, because you won't have faith in anybody if that's where you get all your information. And then you need to take responsibility for being somebody who chooses that as their food in, and only their food in, and constant flow of it. Just be responsible for that. Be accountable in saying that if I'm going to feed myself only that, and I'm not going to bring things in that are funny, that are comedic, that are healing, that are explained to me differently, that are an alternative way of thinking about it, there's other news channels, that there's corruption on the earth isn't a conspiracy. That one takes me the farthest in my mind of going, they can't possibly anybody believe that anymore. It is not a conspiracy that corruption is rampant on the earth. That's sad. But if you want to live not trusting everybody, then you're letting them win. And I can get very passionate about this, obviously, because of what my voice is doing right now. But I'm willing to, I have to try talking, even if I get excited myself. And because I am human, so I will feel my own energy coming forward through opinion and stuff. But I'm trying to lay out ways for us to keep on top of our thinking. I just am not interested in anybody who complains and does nothing different but watch bad TV. I can't sit with that person for very long myself. I will wish them compassionate, or that they're empathetic, actually. The difference between empathy and compassion, where you understand, they're just creating their own story. That's all they watch. They can't feel better over there. But I don't have to sit at a table for an hour and hear that person talk about it. I get to leave. I get to go sit with a different group of people. I get to walk over and turn something else on. I get to go sit in the kitchen and make tea. I get to do whatever. If you stay in the energy of the story with the person, you have now made the same level of commitment to what you're bringing as food in. You can let everyone, you can leave the room from everyone in kindness if you're doing it for your own mental well-being. And not everybody likes it when you start managing your own mental well-being. That's how you learn to separate yourself from people that aren't actually healthy for you. And sometimes we have to leave them completely, and sometimes we just have to love ourselves and they'll come around, because it can happen both ways. I can tell you that how you get better at this is you just constantly tell yourself you have a question you can ask yourself right now, or repeat, I get to control the next thought that's in my mind. I control the next thought that's in my mind. I control the next thought that's in my mind. I get to choose to sit with people. I get to make choices of going and having tea. I'm not responsible for staying in conversations that don't make me feel good. I'm fully capable of and willing and worth getting up and going and having a different experience. I'm going to stretch myself and sit with people that don't complain. I'm going to say nicer things when I'm around people, so the ones that resonate with it will separate themselves and say, oh, I liked it when you just said that. And you realize you're having an effect on their learning. I really like the way you said that, or yeah, that's a good way to think about it, because you were willing to say something positive, optimistic, kind, aware, enlighten them through a joke by using humor even, but that was the input. And if you don't want to sit around people that do the exact same thing, you start making that choice. The choice isn't going to come from everything around you changing. It's always going to come from you changing towards everything around you. Be the change you seek to see in the world is something to use as a foundation. Well, if I want to see something different in the world, I'm going to seek to be that. And if that means kinder. If I want a kinder world, then I'm going to seek to be kinder. If I want a world where we're more tolerant of our differences, then I'm going to work at being more tolerant about differences. If I want to live in a world where women and children and everyone is treated copacetically with respect, I'm going to speak up when people aren't being spoken to with respect. That's not very respectful. Do you think we could actually have this conversation differently? It's not very nice when you speak like that. I don't feel good when I hear that. I don't feel good when that is what I hear being said. Do you think you could word that differently for me? Some people will go, what? You have to tell them, I'm not going to communicate like that anymore. Could we be kinder when we speak to each other? Be willing to show up and put that effort in yourself if you're asking for. Can we practice being kinder to each other? What the hell does that look like? If you need help, then you reach out to people and ask them to help you dial this stuff in. Whether that's coming to me or whether it's coming to somebody that's in a place where you need to be. So if it was very specific and it was something I myself is not my juju for you, then I would find someone for you, or I would be able to give you some insight. Like if somebody said to me, physically they wanted to understand the amount of exercise they needed to do to lose 40 pounds, I do not have an answer for that question. If somebody says to me, I want to understand why I don't feel good about myself, even though I'm 30 pounds overweight and I'd like to love myself like this, that is that person I have valuable information for. So figure out what your juju is too, and then bring it out into the world. So I feel like I want to go back around to something that started in the beginning, and I'm hoping I can remember it. But it's like you can't change the past. It's not happening in front of you. You can't rewind what you just did. Let the speed go back and walk in and re-enter the room. If you go and learn to live in the energy and that where you learn where is that true if I'm a vibrational being versus a physical being? Because in the field of energy, you can change that moment in time in some way by asking yourself a question. Wow, I didn't really want to show up the way I just did by letting that be what just came out of my mouth. So I'm going to say something different this minute. And it might be, holy shit, I owe you an apology. It might be, I just behaved in a manner that wasn't very nice. I'm really sorry. And if they get mad at you still, take your hit. You're the one that's wanting the change. Take responsibility for the action you just actually engaged in. And if somebody says, oh, hey, I know that that's not you, and they know that, you probably have a friend that you can lean towards. If somebody says to me, yeah, blah, 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 what did you do? And they get really mad and then they're going to talk about it for 6 weeks, you have to find a way to be different in that story. You can say, I've apologized 3 times. That's my maximum and limit. Now I'm moving on. And if they want to keep talking about it, then you just keep vibrationally changing the story. And that's where we can get into in depth how to do that inside of a group. I don't want to have that in just an open discussion because people will not be able to hear all of that, some of you, and some of you will. And so I'll just teach accordingly because I do want to be able to explain it in a manner that it does apply to all of us at the human level right now. None of us can change the physical past. So let's work at changing the moment that comes from it. And then let's make a better choice, a more thoughtful choice, a kinder one, a less reactive one, a more intentional one that serves us. Be forgiving. Ask for forgiveness. Say, oh, I'm sorry. Saying, I don't feel good when you speak to me like that. Could we talk about that? If somebody actually is a healthy person, respects you, they're going to respect that. If they're abusive towards you, they're going to tell you to shut the F up. And then you got to work on bringing people towards you that don't do that. And then you may need help. You may need to be in some form of a shelter. You might need to be removed from the situation. I'm giving you food for thought here. But in terms of having control of the next moment, you have control of the thoughts. Just keep practicing that, like understanding that is true. I do actually get how, once you've already reacted in anger, where you just spewed off on somebody, then it's like, okay, well, there's a really cool information. Now I just yelled at them. So now I'm taking it to the next level instead of going, okay, I want to dial this down. And for couples and for people or even working together, it might be, you know what, I just lobbed off there and I need to step away for a minute, and can we start this again? And I'm sorry I spoke to you like that. Can we pick it up in 5 minutes? Can I go have a bath? Most of us will be so open once you get used to realizing that it's just a human mistake most people are making. It's the past, the things that you've done in the past only define your present moment because you've given power for them to do so. I'm not going to let my mistakes define my next moment. I'm going to forgive myself for all of the things that I've done, because I can't change them. But I could walk up to that person and apologize. I could stop talking about them all the time. I could quit getting mad every time I think about them. I could write a letter and burn it. Do you understand what I'm saying? The options are endless for you doing something different when you start to control your own personality in the story. If you want things to be different in them. Some people ask about the red pill or the blue pill. I get confused because I've worked in both sides of the matrix now. But I think the blue pill is they want you to buy in the shit story, and the red pill is, no, I believe that I'm in control of much more of what's going on in my world, my existence on the planet as a soul, than what they would think going on in terms of physical world war and banking and poverty. They want everyone to feel like there's no hope, so they can control everything. When people have no hope, they're controllable. They're the most moldable, impressionable, weak-minded place to be is with no hope. You can't trust blah. Let that be whatever it is. That person, that race, those people, that neighborhood, those guys, that color, that place, that country. Oh my God. Let yourself turn off all that information and come and listen to stuff like this on a regular basis, be it me or someone different. If you're still here, you may want to listen to me more often to start, so you can start to understand things more deeply than when you start to go listen to a whole bunch of people. And I have a teacher that just brought me to that. Said when you're listening to 5 teachers at one time and they're all telling you different things, and one's speaking this language, another one's using this lingo, and that one's explaining it layman, and that person I really like I want to understand what they're saying, or I don't even believe in past lives, or yes, please teach me about the Akashic Records. Those people are very far apart. So the audience that's meant for this information will find the pocket, and you guys and your feedback will tell me what you want to hear. So please put that in the boxes. Put it in the comments. Say, Diane, what you said when I put this up and complete it, I'll know exactly how long it is. And so if I've said something to you at the 12-minute and 15-second mark, and you say, oh, I really liked it when you said, just put that in the notes and tell me to explain that further, or can you expand on that, or how would I help myself through that, or what would I do differently? Because I can talk and teach and talk and teach, but you guys telling me what you need to hear so you understand it better means all of us get it more, so we have a larger impact on how we are out in the world. If we choose kindness more often, more kindness is going to be showing up in our outer world. It's the law of physics. It actually is that's the quantum law. Whatever you're doing the most is what's showing up the most. And so when you look at the division or the difference between an earth that has no hope and an earth that has hope, it's in the act of what you bring to it will create a vibrational match. You just can't have a stick out and be beating yourself constantly over the head because of the mistakes you've made in your past, though, because it's that energy that keeps you on this side of the line versus going forward in the form of something in your heart. And forgiveness is something that forgiveness for self and forgiveness for others, knowing that there's another story. Hurt people. Not everybody's trying to kill us. Not everybody's out to destroy the world. That's a very small pocket of people that have had everybody's attention and mind and control for a long time. But we're taking it back. We're waking up. We're standing up. We're getting independent. And if you want to start a civil war inside of your country as to whether there's corruption in there, like, you're just not thinking clearly. Corruption isn't a conspiracy. It's an absolute fact in almost every country that has influence on the earth, because they went in and took it all. And they also did a lot of bad shit by dumping drugs into small countries and then have control over them very quickly and then turning them into port of entries for everything bad. It's all coming to an end, but it's coming to an end because people are waking up and standing up. But how you affect the whole is by choosing a better thought in the moment you're in. If you want to stay angry at all that shit that's going on, most people would be sickened by it beyond. That's part of the reason they don't have a clue how to disclose how bad it actually is, because people can't hear it. They can't believe that we let it get that bad. Especially towards women and children and stuff on the earth. And that's that's another discussion that I'm willing to have with people. But you guys we would go to that place. You can ask me to explain this stuff to you, but I wouldn't put it in all of our talks. But if you want to understand how deep it got so that you understand how hard you have to stand up against it, I want to have those conversations with people. But if somebody never watches anything but the mainstream news and wants to have long-term discussions and arguments about that the earth is just a shit show and there's nobody worth nothing on it, I can't stay in that story very long, because that is actually not my experience. So that alone means it's different. And I can stand in it different because that's not my experience. Most people are actually pretty amazing. We've just let ourselves fall down the rabbit hole of being, really being programmed to be divisive, because divided they win, and united we win. You fall when you're divided. You don't have there's no solidity left in standing up together. In union, we are a foundation to be reckoned with. If you want to let somebody pee in your cornflakes over your happiness every single day by believing there's nobody good in the world, you need to start talking to somebody and getting some help, or just resigning to yourself that life shows up at the level that we show up. We're in a match to everything that's being reflected back to us, or it wouldn't be being reflected back to us. That's quantum fact. So I'm going to do something about this and find out in a minute. God bless you, beautiful souls, and let me know what you thought of that.